These 5 races have been trying to protect Earth and humans for a long time. The crop formation was a reply to Earth TV signals. This is page 1 of the binary code written down by 𝗪𝗓𝗓𝗧 after he touched the raised symbols on the surface of a mysterious black, glassy, triangular craft on the ground. The extraterrestrial life forms in the incubator in a site on this planet to grow into whatever those extraterrestrials are. Sergeant CJ told me he had never heard about this ever before, this dream, before he woke up with his eyes holding the binary code and the pen. And when you Google ET or Alien Council of 5, this is one of the websites that comes up that lists 5 alleged alien races that include the word 𝗪𝗓𝗧, E-M-E-R-T-H-E-R. This was the very first time in my professional career that I had ever heard of 𝗪𝗓𝗧 in the process of trying to investigate Sergeant CJ's words that he did not understand. We're all in the dark. The website Alien Axioms describes the 𝗪𝗓𝗧 as, quote, one of the founder races of the Council of 5. I believe him. He never heard of Council of 5. He never knew anything. And yet, the telepathy that he had shared and had written down in a notebook, he had notebooks that backed up a lot of what he was saying, you find in a website that I have no idea. I tried to find who was behind this website. One of the founder races of the Council of 5, ancient and more advanced on many levels than most cosmic intelligences. Allegedly, it was the 𝗪𝗓𝗧 that wanted to meet with or did meet with American President Dwight Eisenhower. Not a Nordic, not a blonde, not a reptilian, but with one of these. And that perhaps because, and this is, I've heard this so many times, I can't help but think that there's truth here. Perhaps because the 𝗪𝗓𝗧s wanted atomic bomb testing stopped. Because we were tearing into other dimensions that we did not even know existed. The website states, without giving information sources, quote, very little is known about the 5 alien races that make up the Council of 5. These 5 races have been trying to protect Earth and humans for a long time. And they last met together on planet Earth in 1944. That would be 1 year before we dropped the bombs and World War II ended. I asked Sergeant CJ why he thought advanced intelligences would be communicating with Earth humans in binary code. He replied, quote, well, maybe it's like the yin and yang symbol of black and white. So zeros, ones, they can be used all over the universe to communicate. On Earth, this is what standard ASCII 8-bit binary code looks like. It starts with the number 0, which is equivalent to the 8 characters 00110000. Capital letters are different from lowercase letters, so you have punctuation as well, such as periods and commas. And each and every character has to have their own 8-bit code designators. Australian geneticist Horace Drew, PhD, volunteered to translate Sergeant CJ's squares and ones. Here is the first page where red underlining shows how letters and words emerge from ASCII binary code. And here it is translated, and remember that capital C has its own series of zeros and ones. The uncapitalized O is a different number. Every letter, N, T, I, N, O, U, S, all of each letter has its set of zeros and ones behind it. And so this is how that page that he saw in the doorway in the motel began to be translated. Continuous protection of humanity, 49.27 north, 11.5 east, expose hidden knowledge to all.
What are those coordinates?
Hold on. I had same question. To all citizens, advancement imperative for planetary survival. Beware of Orion 1350.3 and Zeta Reticuli 39.1, question mark of the zeros and ones in between, 70. Avoid signal messages sent, meaning sending messages out into space. And here is the whole translation for all of the squares and lines that Sergeant C.J. wrote on the back of his Motel 6 letter-size receipt in Paducah, Kentucky. And I'll just reinforce: continuous protection of humanity at that latitude and longitude, expose hidden knowledge to all citizens, advancement imperative for planetary survival, beware, like giving an outer space latitude, longitude concerning Orion and Zeta Reticuli, and avoid sending messages out into space. Now, Horace Drew, who did this binary translation, said to me, quote, "Those two coded numbers, 1350.3 and 39.1 question mark 70, he said, that would appear to be the light year distance from Earth. The Orion Nebula is 1,350 light years from Earth. The binary star system of Zeta Reticuli is 39.17 light years from Earth. Further, Zeta Reticuli 1 is supposed to be the original solar system source of the gray aliens, going back to Betty and Barney Hill, 1961, the abduction in New Hampshire, taken, their car stopped, taken by gray aliens into a craft, and Betty was shown a star map. It said Zeta Reticuli 1 and 2 was identified by those grays in 1961 in New Hampshire as where they came from. And here are numbers that match astronomical logs that show the distances from Earth to, in this case, Zeta Reticuli 1 and 2 in the Orion Nebula. Now, the final line, avoid signal messages sent, seems to relate to Sergeant CJ's dream information about the danger for Earth when we send out SETI signals or any other signals without knowing who is on the other end. That same warning came in 2015 from Elon Musk, Bill Gates, and physicist Stephen Hawking, that we should not send lots of radio signals into space that would be picked up by some alien intelligence that could be hostile. Now let's go back to that first line and your question and my question that says, continuous protection of humanity, 49 degrees, 27 minutes north, and 11 degrees, 5 minutes east. If that latitude and longitude are supposed to be a location on Earth where ETs from the Council of Five are protecting humans, how odd that it turns out to be town center of Nuremberg, Germany. Nuremberg was a significant city for the Nazis in World War II, and it was the location of the international war crime trials after the war ended. But Nuremberg was also famous more than 400 years ago, in 1561, when immense black cylinders appeared in an early dawn sky and released many strange, smaller blue, black, red, and orange spheres, rods, and crosses. Many people watched the aerial machines clash in battle above a great black spear that remained stationary for the hour-long conflict. Some UFOs crashed and burned in the lower right of this famous woodcut by German artist Hans Glaser. So who in that aerial UFO battle might have been protecting humanity, as stated in the Sergeant CJ binary code quote, continuous protection of humanity at this latitude and longitude? And what could the battle be about? Let's go deeper into binary code messages by comparing Sergeant CJ's string of zeros and ones to Sergeant Jim Penniston's back on December 26, 1980. That was the night that Sergeant Penniston, with Airman First Class John Burroughs and Airman Ed Kvansak, were ordered into Rendlesham Forest to investigate strange colored lights moving around in the tall forest on civilian land that ran along RAF Bentwaters Woodbridge, then NATO's largest airbase. This is page 1 of the binary code written down by Sergeant Penniston after he touched the raised symbols on the surface of a mysterious black, glassy, triangular craft on the ground. The red lines mark off the groups of 8 zeros and ones to match against the ASCII code translation for letters and numbers. At the right is the summary translation of each line. Exploration of humanity, and then unclear numbers, and then the number 8100. Page 2, Penniston's binary code. It goes latitude and longitude, and then in all caps the word continuous. Page 3, all caps, 4 planetary advance. Page 4, all caps, 4th coordinate continuous question mark, CEPR question mark. That's when the binary code behind each letter or symbol or punctuation can be puzzling to the translator. And then the word before. After the word before, on page 5, Penniston's writing stops. So let's look at it whole. Exploration of humanity, 666, 8100. Then a latitude and longitude, which ancient aliens had a binary code translator. They had the same options that I had, because I was working with an astronomer and other people on my own. But ancient aliens decided to go with one of the options of High Brazil, which is off in the ocean off the coast of Europe. I'll get into what my group found in just a moment, and explain why it's not certain when you deal with latitudes and longitudes that you need specific information that would help guide in binary code, because you can have a lot of options on latitudes and longitudes. The next line, continuous for planetary they assume advancement. 4th coordinate continue before, and then. Here are Penniston's translations of his own lists of latitudes and longitudes, which were in other pages. That they're talking about coordinates on this planet that relate, as we have all begun to discuss, portals that transport alien intelligences in and out of Earth. Caracol, Belize, Sedona, Arizona, the Great Pyramid in Giza, Egypt, the Nazca Lines in Peru, Taichung in China, the portal at the Temple of Apollo in Naxos, Greece, and then these words, eyes of your eyes. There's been a lot of discussion about this. Peniston did not really understand this. It could be that what they mean is we have the ability to look through your eyes. Origin, another latitude, longitude repeat of the first line, described here as High Brazil because that's what ancient aliens went with. And then origin year, 8100. Now this is Jim Peniston's personally approved and official release of his binary code translations. And on that last line, origin year 8100, if you subtract Earth year 1980, when they were in R.F. Bentwaters, from 8100, you get 6,120 years in the future for the time travelers. And this is interesting if that is what this meant, because Jim Peniston from military hypnosis remembered that under hypnosis with military handlers, he thought that the telepathic download that he was getting in the forest that night was coming from beings that were saying they were 40,000 years in our future. Nobody can reconcile or understand these differences. But some people have said it can also be argued that time travelers from a distant future were not referring in terms of time coordinates to Earth-based 365-day year cycles of time here. It may have been a completely different reference to another location in the cosmos. It is also important to understand that Peniston did not have any decimal placements in his string of zeros and ones. So each latitude and longitude could be as many as 24 possibilities. And that's why High Brazil is one. But for the people that I was working with, including an astronomer, when they did analysis of the latitude, longitude, they thought, and the scientist was he felt strongly about this, that latitude, longitude was not High Brazil, that it was the town center of Woodbridge, which is the town where RAF Bentwaters, Woodbridge, and Rendlesham Forest are located. And the argument was that if something was coming here and was on exploration, that it would have been pulsing constantly information about where it was on Earth, and that it would come out in a binary code would mean that Woodbridge town center would make more sense as a relationship of that craft in Rendlesham Forest than out hundreds of miles to the Atlantic and the High Brazil option. Now let's compare Sergeant CJ's first June 30th, 2016 binary translation on the top here to 35 years later, after Sergeant Peniston's binary. And what we're looking at is the upper one is continuous protection of humanity. That's Sergeant CJ. And below is Peniston. And look at where you get this exploration of humanity, unclear 8100, the advancement imperative for planetary survival, for planetary, and we know that that probably was advancement, that something is exploring, and the two have similar words. And so there is a sense that in 1980 and in 2015, that something in two military minds was trying to telepath binary code that was translating perhaps a similar message. Now, both of them, I know Peniston thought that they were worried that we weren't advancing fast enough to deal with what is out in the universe. Sergeant CJ definitely thinks we are not advancing fast enough because of all of the compartmentalization of the technology that ETs have given us. Now, another warning about planetary survival came in this binary code discovered in a wheat field next to Crabwood Copse in the village of Pitt near Winchester, Hampshire, England on August 15, 2002. The gray alien head and binary code disc are in front of BBC Winchester's tall broadcast antenna. The 60 thin horizontal lines are thought to simulate an early 20th century TV broadcast. Probably some of you are here are old enough to remember when the first TV came out, they always had all of these lines. Okay, so this is like a simulation that is an echo of the beginning of the 20th century, not a timeline now. The implication seemed to be that the crop formation was a reply to Earth TV signals. But was the warning from the alien depicted in the wheat holding the binary disc, or was the warning about the alien in this wheat pattern? The three star-like objects on the alien shoulder resemble the famous Orion belt stars. I remember Orion was in Sergeant CJ's binary code. So many people think that there is a threat from something associated with the Orion constellation. Now, just briefly to show you how binary code is extracted from a crop formation. Right at the beginning, see where it is 0100, 0010, and that equals the capital letter B in the ASCII code. And the entire ASCII 8-bit translation of the Crabwood spiral binary code is: beware the bearers of false gifts and their broken promises. Much pain, but still time. Believe there is good out there. We oppose deception, conduit closing. I think all of us in this room would agree with this message, that deception and secrets and lies have hurt this planet more than they have helped. Yeah. A similar message was repeated 13 years later on June 23, 2015, the same year that Sergeant CJ and his wife, kids, and their cats and dogs were abducted from that highway and ended up in Wadley, Georgia, instead of Atlanta. This is June 23, 2015, near the airport of Turin, Italy, also known as Torino. This city is where Jesus Christ's alleged burial shroud is kept. Geneticist Horace Drew from Sydney, Australia, tackled these very difficult rings of binary code that included 128 small circles in straight lines between 16 triangular rays of the outermost ring. His binary translation of that outer ring is 𝗩𝗕𝗦𝗧𝗘. That translates in Italian, beware ET bearing gifts. Horace Drew said the Torino, Italy, June 23, 2015 summer solstice wheat pattern, quote, "It looks like a clock where we have two rotating inner wheels to match the outer wheel," close quote. Even though the inner ring binary code is not clear, Dr. Drew thinks some of it warns about a Trojan horse event coming to Earth. He wonders if the Trojan horse is an invasion attack by the gray ETs from Orion and Zeta Reticuli that had been warned about in Sergeant CJ's binary code, and keep these timelines in mind. Torino, 7 days later, June 30th, 2015, Sergeant CJ's binary, 1 week apart. Sergeant CJ did receive more telepathic downloads coming into his head at night. He said the squares and lines came faster than before, so it was hard for him to write it all down. He also could see that some of the squares were darkened, and he managed to get some of the new communication written down, along with his comments about what was happening. From October 27th to the first week of January of 2016, Sergeant CJ was waking up a lot, and he was yelling. I talked with his wife, and she said he would wake her up talking loudly and was often saying a string of numbers, zeros and ones, zeros and ones. She told me in near tears how much it scared her, and she wanted it to stop. Sergeant CJ said he was trying to concentrate on the dark shadings in the squares that he had not been able to copy before because the images moved too fast in his mind's eye, also like Peniston, from right to left, going across in front of him. But finally, he thought he was getting some of it in these new pages. Horace Drew in Australia researched binary codes and found that there is one, this one at thinkersmith.org, that uses squares that are either clear or blackened to represent ones and zeros. He applied it to Sergeant CJ's new messages. On the far left of this graphic, Dr. Drew's binary translations are in red letters going vertically down the page next to matching binary code, spelling the word imminent. Imminent threat, soon upon Earth's leaders and civilizations. Expose and disband hidden knowledge to all citizens. Same phrase. Hidden knowledge. Disband it to all hidden knowledge, to all citizens. Employ safe and controlled joint study to all minds. Progression imperative for combined survival. Embrace the space vessel threat. 000 journey, 12 in brackets, LY we assume is light year. Ikes, President General Eisenhower was known as Ike. Ikes, embedded citizens are ready. AIS, close, evolve, 111111. And where it's incoherent, that's where Sergeant CJ would say, Linda, it is extremely hard to watch these zeros and ones going by while I'm trying to write in a notebook and get it down correctly. He was always apologizing that he said, I can't do it well enough. Royal 𝗎𝗓𝗧, he got those letters. Royal 𝗎𝗓𝗧 warning, expose foreign technology to all, and the implication was for evolutionary advancement needed to prevent takeover, in brackets the number 3 and an upper apostrophe, not known what it means. In the last paragraph is that all caps word 𝗎𝗓𝗧 that was on that website about the Council of Five. And then on February 18th, 2016, Sergeant CJ found that he had added 5 new lines of squares and lines without darkening any of them. And he emailed me, quote, this was fast, meaning it's moving fast, and I was unsure if I drew them down correctly. It felt like it was not meant for me to write them, and I felt weird about it, like it was not clear enough for me. I just did the best I could and figured it was probably all messed up or wrong. They are the only ones that I have had since I sent you the photos of my notebook. I could not darken the boxes and lines because they were moving too fast, and I was having a hard time concentrating. There was much more to this, but I could not keep up concentrating, close quote. So the first thing I did was send just the picture of the squares to Horace Drew. And this is what he sent back. There were 5 clumps of letters in 5 unknown words. He did know that the last word, translated Ki, was in original ancient Sumerian and meant earth. So I sent the 5 words to Professor Joshua Jeffers, PhD, Research Specialist, Royal Inscriptions of the Neo-Assyrian Period Project at the University of Pennsylvania Museum of Archaeology and Anthropology, Babylonian section in Philadelphia, and here is his March 24th, 2016 reply. The first 2 words and the 4th word look to be Akkadian and not Sumerian. The first word could be the god Nabu, but without the cuneiform it is difficult to say since there is no divine classifier before it. Nabu was one of the 3 most important gods in Sumeria. Nabu was the keeper of the tablets of destiny that recorded humanity's fate. He was son of Marduk and grandson of Enki Ea of the Anunnaki. Nabu's grandfather Ea is the creator and protector of humanity because Ea created humans out of clay to be worker slaves for the Mesopotamian gods. But the supreme god Enlil was irritated by the noise that humans made, apparently because we are not telepathic and we have to talk out loud all the time. So Enlil wanted to destroy Ea's human slave creation with a devastating flood. But Ea realized what Enlil was up to and got a friend to build an ark so that humanity could escape God Enlil's act of annihilation. Professor Jeffers said the second word, Rakbu, would be the noun for rider, R-I-D-E-R, from the verb rakabu, to ride, frequently upon a horse or chariot. The middle word could possibly be the word for the city of Larsa in southern Mesopotamia, written out phonetically. It is nonsensical for Sumerian and Akkadian the way it is written here, and this puzzled the professor. The 4th word, sanu, could be an infinitive of the verb to do again, or a second time, or even to be different or strange. The 5th word, ki, by itself can be Sumerian and would mean earth or land. Now, the way it finally was translated on the phone when I was talking with the professor, I said to him, could it translate in English that the Sumerian Lord God Nabu is returning in a chariot to Earth? And the professor said, yes, I think that would be a reasonable translation. Now, let's look at and just go through Sergeant CJ and listen to the full translation. June 30th, 2015, continuous protection of humanity, and we now know that that's Nuremberg, Germany, latitude, longitude. Expose hidden knowledge to all citizens. Advancement imperative for planetary survival. Beware of Orion, 1,350 light years away, and Zeta Reticuli, 39.17 light years away, avoid sending signals out into space. October 2015 to January 2016. Imminent threat soon upon Earth's leaders and civilizations. Expose and disband hidden knowledge to all citizens. Employ safe and controlled joint study to all minds. Progression imperative for combined survival, and you could add of humanity. Embrace this space vessel there at 000 journey 12 light years. This is the most confusing one. Ike's embedded citizens are ready, and then nobody understands the next two lines, except that it has the word evolve. And then Royal 𝗪𝗧𝗧 warning, expose foreign technology to all. Evolutionary advancement needed to prevent takeover. Binary code coming into human minds in dreams or from touching symbols on alien machines, like what happened in Rendlesham Forest on December 26, 1980, was apparently of great interest to America's Defense Intelligence Agency. The DIA had remote viewers working at Fort Meade, Maryland, next door to the National Security Agency in 1986. Remote viewer Lynn Buchanan worked in a DIA unit called DTS. Their goal was to research how accurately psychic abilities could be used in their spy program called Stargate. On July 14, 1986, one of Lynn's assigned practice targets was the Rendlesham Forest incident. But only his monitor knew the target on a 3x5 card in a file drawer. Further, Lynn knew nothing about the military mystery that had occurred 6 years before on December 26 to 28, 1980. He knew nothing, zero, never heard of it. But what Lynn did see in remote viewing seems to link to the repeating theme in the binary code messages about planetary survival for aliens, for humans, or for both. I interviewed Lynn Buchanan recently about this 2008 CIA released document. This came out on the web officially at the CIA site. It is Lynn's original 1986 Rendlesham Forest controlled remote viewing session. And when I called him and said, Lynn, have you seen what the CIA released? He said, what? They were never supposed to let the public know anything about what we were remote viewing. Well, none of us, including Lynn, knew that this had been unclassified and posted on the CIA website until John Burroughs got an anonymous call to go to this specific URL. None of us would have known if somebody who did know called John Burroughs and he called me. And then I called Lynn Buchanan. It is the CIA website, and there was this 1986 transcript of Lynn Buchanan's remote viewing session. Why it was put there, Lynn wondered, without anyone telling him. The following audio segment from my interview with Lynn about the 1986 session begins as he was seeing inside a craft landed in Rendlesham Forest, and he's trying to find the pilot and the propulsion unit in remote viewing.
I got that the driver of this vehicle is not in the vehicle. He's somewhere else.
Like this object that you are remote viewing in Rendlesham Forest could be a drone that is not manned, but that the intelligence associated with this is somewhere else.
Yeah, and that's when I got AOL break. Oh, I'm viewing ATs. So move me back to the place with the yellow light. That's when I got an incubator. I definitely realized that this young person, whatever, was in the place with the yellow light, and that it was an incubator. Putting my analyst hat on, I would tend to say from this one session that this craft was looking for an ideal place, and once it found it, that incubator would open up and provide a living space for whatever was in it.
And you mean that the incubator in the black glassy craft, which is the outside version we have from the Penison drawing, it would then deposit the extraterrestrial life forms in the incubator in a site on this planet to grow into whatever those extraterrestrials are.
That would be the analysis of that one session, yes.
Now, you did other remote views on RAF Bentwaters later on.
I was tasked with finding the power source. In fact, I still didn't know really what the Bentwater thing was. I got the propulsion system was a very small, enclosed thing that didn't really hook up to the craft, but was in some way providing a field of energy around the craft. And it was in an enclosed container type thing. When I was told to mentally move into the container to find out what was going on, I was not able to do that.
And this is the black box that you encountered in that very first July 14th, 1986 remote viewing. You didn't know where you were at the time, and you didn't know what it was.
That was it, yeah. And this energy type box has come up in several other things, like Sacsayhuaman that has, I think, 100-ton stones.
Sacsayhuaman is in Cusco, Peru.
Yeah, and there was a tasking about how those were moved. I've heard a lot of people say those were moved by sound and all that, but that's not what I got in my remote viewing session. I got that there was some kind of an object that emitted energy that could surround something and make it to where you could just pick it up.
Right, it would neutralize gravity.
Yeah. I had a task one time of the 𝗪𝗓𝗦𝗬𝗧, which was an ET that landed in northern Japan. In that case, this female-looking being came out of the ship. She carried this box with her, and she never let anybody have this box. And I think the box, whatever was in the box, was what made the ship move.
And that's the 𝗪𝗓𝗦𝗬𝗧 that I mentioned in the beginning. Time machines, incubators of alien life trying to survive in planet-seeding missions, ET hybrids and clones, eons beyond us, as the MJ-12 documents say. Whistleblowers have reported that alien technologies can make their various spacecraft, androids, and other ET technologies invisible to human eyes. This naval ship fading into invisibility is an October 2015 Northrop Grumman Facebook posting. In addition to invisibility, the extraterrestrial technology is described as functioning with self-activating software that can neutralize gravity and project three-dimensional holograms as camouflage that human eyes and minds cannot detect in the Earth environment. And it's been stressed with me that the sophistication of holograms that are used by ETs on planet Earth, that they are so good, they are so superior to anything that we are doing, that you could be in a park. It's been described to me by a military guy, and a tree that you think you are sitting by. The tree could be a hologram that is uploading and downloading information about us. The alien goal, they say, is to harvest genetic material from this planet's animal and human life in order to create a large ongoing supply of rapid cycle-cloned and hybridized body containers with very advanced technology that some people in the human abduction syndrome refer to as the resurrection tubes. I first learned about the cloning tube technology the first week of March 1991 when I received in the mail a large envelope that contained an audio cassette letter and several color drawings from a woman named Linda Porter. She was born in 1946 and began having dramatic experiences with non-humans by age 12 in 1958. She had decided it was important to reach me after hearing a conference presentation that I had given in California concerning eyewitness testimony about non-human intelligences interacting with our planet. She was concerned about her vulnerability as a person caught up in the human abduction syndrome, and she was frightened about the United States government's policy of hiding the alien presence. Her letter began, quote, "We abductees are caught in the middle of a series of ongoing events that will one day prove to be historically significant to the future of the Earth. Unfortunately, because of our continuing non-voluntary interaction with these beings, we have, in a sense, become victims of both sides of the phenomena." And she means as a human abductee. On the one hand, we are used by the aliens for their own purposes, whatever those purposes might be. On the other, if we speak out, we risk ridicule from the public and, in some cases, possible harassment and/or intimidation by government and military personnel. If you could look directly into these creatures' eyes, you would realize that every detail of your life, no matter how personal, how mundane, how minute, is known to them. It makes me wonder, are we some kind of Ken and Barbie dolls being played with by an emotionally immature race of beings with no sense of morality? Or are we pawns held in the grasp of a dying race that will do anything for their own survival, including the cold-blooded manipulation of another species, we humans, and the brutal mutilation of helpless animals? Unless a person has been through the trauma of an abduction, they cannot comprehend how these entities can strip the mind and the soul as easily as they can strip the clothes off a body. They scan details of a person's life with such facility that they make you feel as if you are interesting pieces of lint caught between their toes. In the blink of an eye, these beings devastate all personal freedom, all sense of privacy, and all prospects for living a normal existence. A person's life is never the same again. He or she is changed forever. Linda Porter's words speak for a lot of abductees who have interacted with gray, blonde, reptilian, insect humanoids, tall whites, and more. But some abductees think that there are friendly non-humans, that they're actually trying to help people advance to more stability that will help the non-humans to survive as well, all echoing C.J., Peniston, this abductee. They have this same underlying theme in all of them. In this 1995 Thanksgiving letter to me, Linda Porter wrote, quote, "The people who live on the earth, those who will survive the destructive changes to come, will be evolving into a new species of being. I'm not referring right now to the time travelers from Earth's future that are here also. That was something that was necessary because Earth's governments got hold of a dangerous technology that greatly altered Earth's future for the worse. And this implies something that I have just in the last 5 years heard from some military people, that they have done time traveling, and that it started in the 1970s. Seems incredible that in the 1970s our government was already time traveling. And those that were working with time travel began to realize that time travel can, I think one man said, it can snarl. You can make knots if you don't know what you're doing. And if you make snarls and knots in time, the consequences for the entire Earth future become changed. Remember the mistake that was made when I told you about a while back? Some type of technology fell into the wrong hands here, and the future travelers were sent back in time to change that. And that is her explanation for why we would have time travelers from the future involved in the earth. They're trying to unsnarl mistakes that we made. I don't know if it has been changed, at least not yet. But that was an entire sidebar to evolution that was never meant to happen. Close quote. Something that the government got. Linda Porter was the first of half a dozen people in the human abduction syndrome that I've interviewed who experienced being raised and lowered in a tube of light and passing through walls that she and other abductees say feel like thousands of little feathers all over their body when they're going through walls or matter. Linda said the light tube is different from the tunnels that opened up inside of her bedroom, like this drawing. Quote, "The beam is used only to transfer people from Earth to a craft and back." The tunnel that can also open up in people's rooms is a physical created hole from one dimension to another. Probably something like an Einstein-Rosen bridge. Traveling through the tunnel was what made me ill, had something to do with change in physical density of two differing dimensions, close quote. Linda told me that in 1963, when she was 17 years old, she was abducted from her Covina, California home by gray-colored beings with very large eyes. These gray beings seem to be the extraterrestrial biological entities, or EBENs, that are described in leaked government documents as friendly and concerned about Earth and human evolution. Or maybe they are the 𝗪𝗧𝗧, reference to Sergeant CJ's binary downloads. Linda Porter was shown a procedure to transfer the soul or life force from a dying man into a healthy younger clone of the man that Linda could see in one of the cloning resurrection tubes. The gray being told Linda telepathically that the same soul transfer would be done with her. The gray explained to her that she had rheumatic fever as a teenager that damaged her heart. The gray non-human said it was vital that the Linda Porter soul entity continue in the same genetic body container that she had been born with in order to accomplish an unknown alien agenda. Linda saw rise out of the top of the dead man's spine, back here, a golden yellow-orange light that elongated in the air as it moved across the room to a row of body-sized tubes lighted from top and bottom and filled with a strange purple-looking gas. Inside the tube on the far right was a clone body of the same man, but about 10 years younger. Linda Porter said there was a problem about Earth body containers, souls, other dimensions, and the altered timelines. She said, quote, "I was told that the resurrected clone man would be relocated elsewhere, maybe Australia, and would continue on with his life," close quote. Linda thought it was vital to the non-human entities that the man's soul had to continue functioning longer inside the specific same kind of container that was his older, sick body. Linda thought that part of the reason that they take tissue samples from abductees when they are very young is to have this tissue in reserve in case a new body for an abductee becomes necessary later on, to keep the same body type and the soul together for a very specific length of time that only the aliens understand what they are doing. She said, Quote, new bodies can be stored indefinitely. The containers in the sketch with the 3 people in the tubes are storage containers. The containers in both new sketches that I sent you are activation containers. They have a light in the top that must be on the person for an unknown amount of time before a body can be activated if a body has been in storage. If newly made, it does not need light. In the sketch with the 3 people in the tubes, the body on the far right was the younger one given to the dying man. She said, I got the impression the aliens do not like to do this soul transfer very often. Actually, I got the feeling the aliens are not supposed to be doing this at all. But they seem to be backed into a corner and have no other recourse. They also seem to be trying to hide all of this soul transfer from some higher form of life, whatever the authority is that prohibits this soul transfer, also prohibits the ETs from interfering on this planet. But Linda, they are interfering. Whoever it is much higher evolved than they are and wields a great deal of power over many, many, many other realms of existence. There is much, much more to existence than we could ever begin to understand. Much of what we have been taught regarding the physical universe and the laws that govern them are wrong. The Eben doing the soul transfer from her diseased body to her new clone body in one of the lighted tubes gave Linda Porter an overview of how the cosmos is constructed from the Eben's point of view. The universe is built on sound patterns, which is why so many different worlds, dimensions can exist in the same space. Each is on a different frequency. You disrupt a world dimension to the point that you destroy the carrier wave it exists on, and you have created a hole in existence that cannot support the dimension above or below it. Each frequency, besides maintaining its own world dimension, also supports or holds in place the one above it and below it. Everything is interdependent. There are countless worlds, dimensions occupying the same space without being aware of one another because of having their own individual octaves. This octave frequency holds the world dimension in place and causes it to exist safely without interfering with or even being aware of other worlds around it. This frequency acts as a buffer zone to keep everything in its place. Do anything to disrupt it, and you begin to collapse. You begin a collapse that starts a deadly chain reaction. If the density of this collapse reaches a certain weight, space-time itself begins to collapse. Atomic and hydrogen bombs physically tear into other dimensions. And whatever the experiment is that our government is involved with in outer space, if successful, it will change the density of matter to such an extent that the chain reaction started will not be able to be stopped by anybody in any world dimension. There are literally hundreds of different alien life forms here trying to stop what is happening, as it is putting their own worlds at risk. Some, as I had mentioned in earlier letters, are not supposed to be interfering, but they are doing so anyway. What they are all trying to do is stop the ripple effect that will emanate outward from Earth should this government experiment succeed. With all of their technology, why don't the aliens or their superiors just walk in and stop this whole thing themselves? Why do they need us abductees to speak for them? Something just does not make sense. I wonder if we are being lied to, used for some purpose to put over ideas that the aliens want us to believe. If there is an experiment, maybe if it succeeds, it will put us humans in competition with the aliens for something they don't want to share. Maybe they are trying to scare us out of their neighborhood. Close quote. The complexity of the chess game is so huge that now, after 40 years of trying to get to the bottom of animal mutilations and everywhere it has taken me all around this planet, as I read Linda Porter's words to you again tonight, or this morning now, it seems dark, that she really was hitting some nails on the head. And a big one is the layers of deception, not only by our governments, but by the non-human intelligences. And about the 𝗎𝗓𝗓s that are supposed to be friendly and allies, I received a Christmas card one year. Christmas cards are used by people in intel agencies to communicate because of the volume of mail, and the government is not opening up everybody's Christmas cards. And written in that Christmas card, which I still kept, was, Linda, the 𝗎𝗓𝗓s are supposed to be our allies, ... But they lie. And you can also argue that we take our pets to the vet, and the vet is there to help the cats or the dogs, but they don't understand. They're panicked and afraid, and they hate going to the vet. And we are the superior life form at that moment because we're the ones who know why we took them to this strange place to have them handled and have needles put in them and extractions. And I always try to give that to audiences about this because the truth is, I've talked to so many people in the government who say to me, Linda, we really don't understand the ultimate end game. The complexity of the layers are huge, and there is deception by everyone. But it is possible that the allies have been trying to help us in strange ways, even blocking intrusions of dimensions that we don't even know exist. Always remember that, no matter what happens.